Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slam Hub Wrestling. Myself, Supreet, and this is your main roster talk. And I'm joined by Ridwan here. What's up, Ridwan?
Hey Supreet, how's it going?
Doing good, man. So I find it funny that we were figuring out what to talk about for this week's main roster talk. But here comes our good friend Nick Khan, giving us some good content, you could say.
Yes, he's given us like 2 weeks worth of content, and for the past, for the previous couple of episodes, we've been doing it on a 2 week stretch because of some instances or the other. But now it's like those 2 weeks are compressed into one episode, which is great for us.
So we will talk about the releases that WWE just made and other major news regarding WWE going back to touring and of course SummerSlam. So but before that, if you are new to Slam of Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our other content that you will get in the description below. Please do check that out as well. But let's start from the hot topic, man. We got yet another round of releases. I think this is the third one for this year, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, this is like the third major chunk of releases that are happening, or fourth if you want to count the NXT bunch that were released in the middle. With Drake Woods and Velveteen Dream. I think yeah, he was also part of the same bunch, I guess. Anyway, so there's like a lot of cleaning that's going on, and we are past spring, so I didn't really know how to term that. But yeah, I mean, they are actually quite serious on like cleaning up a lot of the mess that 2019 brought for WWE in terms of hoarding talent, if you think about it.
But how did this all start? Where did it start from? For I'm talking about this release.
So, is this the first person to start off this bunch of releases? Is quite funny actually. So we had a writer on the WWE side. I mean, she was writing for Raw, I believe. Her name was Kenise Mobley, and she did a podcast interview, and she was completely oblivious to the WWE product, which landed the company in hot water for hiring someone who isn't familiar with the product as well as not being a fan. So it caused a lot of backlash, and eventually she ended up getting terminated, which started the whole thing in like it sets up whole things in motion for this current batch of releases. So what are your thoughts on this thing that happened with her?
I think it's not fair that we put the blame on her because she needed a job, so she applied. I think for WWE, she got selected. But this all blame goes on WWE. For why are you hiring people like this with no wrestling experience? She doesn't even know who Bobby Lashley is properly.
Yes, I was just getting to that. Your main champions, who's supposedly the face of your company, and if you're like not aware of that, so that's a big no either way. So it's like, for example, if you're working for Starbucks and you don't know what a latte or a cappuccino is, you should know eventually. So I feel like, of course, 85% of the blame should go to WWE for hiring someone like her who is like who has zero knowledge about the sport and it slash genre, and 15% should go to her because for doing her research properly, for applying for the job and eventually, working around that. But I think it is a practice in the past that they have hired people with non-wrestling acumen and ended up hiring them and employing them for the longest period of time.
I think the recent example was our good friend Adnan Work. He had a
Who?
sports background, but no experience in
Who?
wrestling.
Who's that?
That's my gimmick, man. Please don't backfire on me.
I keep stealing your gimmick on this series, like with our boy Bruce Pritchard as well.
But yeah, man, that's the thing going on. I think it's the whole Nick Khan regime. Bring outsiders into the WWE environment, and yeah.
That's, I mean, I genuinely feel sorry for her, but at the same time, I mean, it's just, it happened. And like, you shouldn't really make fun of people who've lost their jobs, and especially during this time. But I mean, with WWE's best practices, I'm not too surprised, and it's still sad all the same.
But she was not the only release for this week, because we had, you could say, a bunch of, you could say, NXT talents, and especially 205 Live being released. So I think I have the names here. So I'm gonna start with. So we had Brizango, Ever Rise, Arya Davari, Tony Nese, Killian Dane, Kurt Stallion, August Great. I think they also released Bollywood Boys, Marina Shafir, and am I missing someone?
Yes, Tino Sabatelli.
So those were, you could say, the names from the NXT side. These were not from the main roster side of things. But shall we talk about them individually and what they could have done with these people?
Yes.
So let's start from Brizango, man. So whether be it in a singles role or in a tag team, Fandango and Tyler Breeze were, a overact at some point of their careers in WWE.
No, 100%. And both of them have like had the ebbs and flows of a career where they were just completely over with the fans, and then they were shunted down, and then they used to get over in some way, and again they got shunted down. But I genuinely feel sorry for, I mean, of course, for both of them, but especially Tyler Breeze, because so he was so talented, and they could have done so much with him, but eventually ended up not. And NXT, I mean, they got released from NXT now, but like, Tyler Breeze has had more of his fame in NXT, being one of the cornerstones in the brand's eventual rise in like 2014, 2015, and getting to wrestle Jushin Thunder Liger on an NXT takeover is like nothing to sneeze at. And at the same time, then he moved to the main roster in, I think, late 2015 in the feud with Dolph Ziggler. Not the best start of for your main roster career anyway. And he was just like, so quickly he was just thrown down the card, and he was just another name. And after that, he was in the, like, he was paired with Fandango during, I think, in 2016, just before the brand split. And since then, like, they've been one of the most entertaining acts in any form, but they weren't used much either way. So the best time was, of course, the Fashion Files that they did in 2017, after the 2017 Superstar Shakeup.
which was
That was like,
which was
yeah.
not meant to be, get over with the fans at that point.
Yes, it was. I think it was their peak on the main roster. Like, below, they haven't achieved any form of fame after that. And Tyler Breeze wrestling as a janitor was so much fun. I think they faced the Usos for the titles, and yeah, and then they got their Fashion File show got moved to WWE.com as a web special for some reason, and they it took so long for either one of them to eventually find their footing after that, and they got shunted down to NXT. Tyler Breeze wrestled a hell of a match with Velveteen Dream on Takeover 25, and Fandango returns later on, and they both win their one and only championship in the company, was winning the tag titles. I think they defeated Imperium, or did they defeat Locker and Butch?
They did defeat Imperium.
Yes, and that was the only highlight in NXT. So it's genuinely sad to see them go. And I feel that they'll be just fine on, like, wherever they go. And especially Fandango, he's been wrestling for so long, and he was also a part of TNA during its genesis. Like he wrestled a few matches here and there, and he's been trained by Killer Kowalski as well. So I think he's going to be just fine. Breeze, however, if you're a fan of up up down down, you're gonna feel punched into your stomach because you're not sure if he's going to appear on the both of their weekly hits on the channel, and it genuinely makes me sad to see Breeze especially go because he won't be a part of the channel anymore.
I think he can he make appearances?
I highly doubt because even Samoa Joe, when he was released, he wasn't on the channel, and he's one of the regulars.
But anyways, man. But let's talk about Everrise. So I think they recently got signed. I think 2 3 years ago, and never
Yeah,
subjected to anything.
yeah, they were. I think 2019 they got signed, and since then, like either it's been NXT or 205. Like they had a more prominent role on 205, but even then it wasn't saying much because no one was watching 205 live, and they were just there for a while, and now they're let go, which is also sad because they were actually one of pretty. I mean, they were quite famous on the independent scene, especially in Chikara as 3.0, and of course the Canadian independent scene.
And they were a favorite tag team of Kevin Owens.
Yes, he's like in many interviews, he used to wear the Everrise t-shirt during most of his interviews, and also like very like just on the time of their release, there was a tweet posted by Chuck Taylor, and he was like, it just landed today in my mailbox that there was an Everrise mug that he ordered and got released.
But yeah, man. We have also Arya Dawari and Tony Nese at another 205 live OGs because, and from here they
Definitely.
cleaned off every 205 live. You could say OG from that roster and just released them.
Yes. If you think about it, I think 205 Live was given a mercy kill in this bunch of releases because now you only have like 6 or 5 active competitors.
Because
So yeah,
and if we talk about these two, Dawari was just there, and Tony Nese, I will actually mention it somewhere. I am putting him in the Buddy Murphy camp. Like he goes out and signs to any major promotion and is just going to kill it.
yes, like he has the similar amount of skill set and talent as your Buddy Murphy or Aleister Black. Wherever he goes, he's going to be just fine. And now you've mentioned Buddy Murphy over here and Tony Nese. That's like a weird. I mean, I don't want to, not weird, but like it's an interesting form of kinship because they were a pair on 205 Live. When Buddy Murphy was the cruiserweight champion, Tony was kind of his insurance policy slash training buddy, and that was like a good story arc. And of course, it was one of his highlights on 205 Live and in WWE because that led to him winning the cruiserweight championship at WrestleMania in front of his home crowd. So that was amazing for Tony Nese. And speaking of Davari, I feel, yeah, like you mentioned, he was there, but there were like instances where he showed so much of his character and did really well because I think most of his time on the in WWE he was a heel. I don't think he was ever a face. And like I remember that pairing that he had with Hideo Itami. I think that was great too. That also showed us some of his character. And that was the time with like he was calling himself Davari Dinero, like the very rich and smug wrestler. And I think, yeah, even both of them were part of Enzo Amore's entourage while he was the cruiserweight champion, both Davari and Denise, wow,
I
Tony
think
Nese.
everyone got released from that bunch.
No, actually, no,
Yeah, Drew Gulak
Gulak
is still
and
there.
Drew Gulak is still there, and even Noam Dar is there. He's on NXT UK, but again, no one watches NXT UK. It's kind
But
of sad for.
what's the point of 205 Live then? Just kill that show and have them wrestle on NXT.
Yes, and that's what they've been doing for like ever since NXT went live, and 205 was more of the secondary show. At the same time, with these bunch of releases, 205, like I mentioned, it's now or never. Like it's soon that 205 Live will be shut down as well. But and anyway, like many talent on the NXT roster are cruiserweights, so you're just going to fill with that. So
And
that's also some.
speaking about Arya Davari, remember that memorable segment when they did that first Saudi show and they had the new Saudi recruits and just that
Yes, and
feel good moment type of segment they did.
yeah, it costed them a lot because obviously Iran and Saudi are still at major conflicts in real life, and having them do both the brothers, Sean and Arya. So that was something, and I think Sean Devari is currently with MLW or Impact. So even for
Why
Arya,
did I
like it
see him a couple of weeks ago then? Was it Sean Davari appearing as a backstage guy?
I am not sure. Like,
Where did I see him?
was
Did I
he?
see him in Impact or WWE? I don't even know at this point.
Yes, I remember seeing him somewhere, like as a random Instagram post, like this company has signed. I am not sure if this was WWE or yeah, even I'm confused now. But I remember seeing him somewhere as MLW while he was like jacked up, and it was just to show like a portrait picture of him. But yeah, I mean, most of the 205 Live OGs are not on the show anymore, let alone in the company, because I think the only person that is still there is Brian Kendrick, and he has retired and he's working as a producer on SmackDown.
Good for him.
Yeah. is
And speaking about 205 Live, Kurt Stallion, August Gray have reportedly gone. And you could also say these guys got signed last year, I think, or a year before that.
Yes. Yeah, I think they were signed they were signed mid last year. Not sure about Kurt Stallion, but August Gray, yes. He was wrestling under the name of Anthony Green on the independent circuit, and I think he was one of the Evolve champions as well. So sorry, that was Evolve was basically testing the waters for NXT and by hierarchy on the main roster. But I think, and this is actually kind of cruel. What I'm going to tell you is like both August Gray and Arya Davari, they were scheduled to wrestle on 205 Live, and just before the show's airing, they get released. So it's also a punch in the gut, and it's damn sad that it happened in a way,
Like,
because I think even they did not see it coming.
like we are saying, 205 Live is a dead concept. Just have this cruiserweight wrestle in NXT. That's it.
And given what happened on NXT this week, you could say the cruiserweight division and the championship is set to stay in NXT, and you can do so much well with that on NXT itself, given the roster that you have, and it'll also give the cruiserweights a better chance to shine. And so yeah.
Tino Sabatelli is also gone. If I'm not wrong, this guy was signed way, way back. I think 5, 6 years ago. Had a great look, typical WWE style. I think his problem was he was getting injured a lot, and he did get featured in NXT at one point. I think he was teaming up with Riddick Moss. There was potential, but then there was yet another injury where he, quote unquote, retired, and that was it.
Yeah, he was actually doing some commentary stuff as well in the middle while he was healing from his injury, and he did get released in the middle, like I think last year during the main stages of the pandemic, and alongside this another wrestler, I don't recall, he was ambushed by Samoa Joe while he was making his debut. Yes, Dan Mehta was his name. Yes. So Dan Mehta and Tino Sabatelli both get released last year during the mass bunch of releases in April. And at that time, yes, yes, and they started a podcast bitching about WWE. And later on, Sabatelli goes on to wrestle on AEW Dark, and then he gets re-signed by WWE. That was weird. And I think he was also like he was either called an NXT mole for leaking NXT results to AEW or vice versa. He was also accused of one of those things. Like the same thing, but not sure which side.
That is weird.
Yes, and then he gets re-signed by WWE, which was very, very weird. And again, now he's being let go. He also had he had a great look, which would help him succeed on the main roster. But then again, in some ways or another, he was like a discount version of EC3. And if the original version of EC3 failed, then what else would you expect of its great value version? So that really stung all the momentum that he could have potentially had on the main roster. Maybe.
So speaking about potential, Marina Shafir got released, and find it funny that Roderick Strong actually came back this week on NXT, and there was a slight feeling you could have also brought in Marina Shafir as the and could have experimented, these two as a pair, but yeah, they are. Roderick Strong is found a new faction. Marina Shafir is gone. They could have used that pairing with Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong. There was a potential there.
Yes, because I mean, obviously because of Marina's legitimate fighting background, and the Diamond Mine strong stable is also like with pure technical wrestling. It's like a more bigger version of Catch Point as it was on the independent scene, and both of them were managed by Malcolm Bivens, formerly known as Stokely Hathaway. So that was like Gulak was there, Riddle was there during the original Catch Point. Gulak, Riddle, Timothy Thatcher was there as part of the stable, and I think TJP was also there in at one point.
Was this in Evolve?
Yeah, this was in Evolve.
Hmm.
So the Diamond Mine is just like a more I don't want to say great value version of it, because like of course Evolve, NXT is like a step up from Evolve. But yes, there were a lot of potential. I mean, you could have used Marina Shafir in that role. At the same time, if you think about it, the whole hype of hiring her and Jessamine Duke was to set up the eventual four horsewomen match, where four horsewomen of WWE was going to wrestle four horsewomen of MMA, and the only person remaining right now in the company is Shayna Baszler. You would never have imagined that either,
Hey,
because
by
even
the way,
Ronda's
this
gone now.
by the way, this MMA horsewoman versus WWE horsewoman has to be the most overrated dream match that the IWC could come up with.
I, I couldn't agree with you more on that one, because like Jessamine and Marina, with all due respect, they were green. Of course, that would have, and they weren't even given much chance to improve and hone their craft, because they were just there on TV sometimes and they were taken off. And I think they were doing the hench betting for Shayna as well while she was NXT champion, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was a very, could say, logical role for them at the time.
Yes, and obviously, since they were green, they would have taken time to, get used to the TV and TV surroundings, and then eventually make their way up to the main roster, which was a very logical, which could have been a I mean, logically it makes so much sense, but you could have used that. And also, Ronda isn't with the company anymore, I believe. She is also taken time. I mean, of course, she's been off since WrestleMania 35, and now she is pregnant with her husband, Travis Brown.
And did you know that they actually teased Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke to be paired with Shayna Baszler on the main roster? I think there it was a typical Raw last year. They had a segment, just a shot that Shayna Baszler was talking with these two ladies.
Was this because their most notable run on the main roster was Raw Underground, and after that they weren't used much?
Yeah. I think that was during the same time that this whole Raw underground shit was happening.
Yeah, which also was a very disastrous concept on execution. I mean, it had a bit of potential, but eventually it wasn't to be.
You, my friend, did a great job mentioning Raw underground. because we forgot one name, and I think I'm going to butcher his name. I think it's uh that guy from who has that Brazilian jiu-jitsu background,
Arturo
Arturo
Ruas.
Ruas. Yes, he also got released.
Yes, he was wrestling under his real. Is this his real name or what? Like, he was initially wrestling under the name of Adrian Jaoud, and he was like during in the house show circuit for NXT. He was in a tag team with Cesar Bononi from AEW fame, and they were being managed by Tainara Conti.
Yeah, that's a
So
Brazilian, you could say, connection. So those three were, you could say, a tight group.
yes, and then nothing happens. Bononi got released, and Tainara also got released later on. But Ruas, they were investing a lot of time in building him, even on NXT. You know, anytime he used to appear as a jobber to the stars, he used to show most of his skills and impress the crowd as well as Triple H. And there were reports that Triple H was a fan of his, and he wanted to showcase more of his legend background. And then he was on Raw Underground and wrestled a few matches, and that was that. And he was also one of the guys who were drafted to Raw during last year's draft, and they didn't use him at all. And there was a report that he was injured, and he still is injured to this day. And that's like a low blow, man. Getting injured while you're released, or
But the thing we have seen him, the small stint he had in NXT, he was actually really good.
yes, he was. And like I mentioned, you know, he had the legit fighting background, and Triple H is known to be a fan of, you know, such acts. Like he was prominently featuring Shayna Baszler as well. And now that we have Diamond Mine as well on NXT. So, like, he seems to be a huge fan of such acts. And again, like, you know, it's a shame as well as it's damn sad that, you know, having releasing people without getting them to show you know, major form of improvement that they could have done on, like, on TV.
But yeah, man, like I said, and by the way, I want to recommend a gem of a match of Arturo Ruas. I think it's from 2019. It was against Matt Riddle on NXT. Go check that out. It's pretty, amazing.
Yeah, I think this was during his feud with during his feud with Velveteen Dream,
Mm,
because
Now this
I
is I'm
think
talking about NXT
mm,
has had already been airing on USA.
oh, okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
But yeah, this guy has really has a, you could say, upside if he goes to any other promotion. Seeing this
Yeah, I
style.
feel, yes, you know, like I mentioned earlier, he was in a tag team with Bononi and managed by Conti. So, and both of them are doing, like, Bononi is doing pretty okay for himself as part of Wingman on AEW, and Tainara Conti has shown, like, I think she was one of the biggest stars coming out of, like, I would say one of the biggest surprise packages coming out of last year's mass release, because her and Diana Purazzo, because no one expected them to be, you know, such a big deal. And here they are, like, a year later, doing wonderful stuff on Impact and AEW, respectively.
I want Arthur Ruas in Ring of Honor killing in that pure division.
Oh, that would be amazing.
And
I think,
yeah, man. Any
yeah,
thoughts?
either one of Stallion and Gray also would be a welcome addition on ROH as well.
I think we have the final name. I think it's we are left with Killian Dane. Killian Dane, 5-6 years ago, was a big indie name that they used to hype. Like he is the biggest guy in the UK, big guy in the Indies. He actually came into NXT with that same hype. Joined Sanity. We all know how the Sanity story went. With great act in NXT, went to the main roster, didn't even get used, and slowly over the years, except Nikki Cross, they got WWE actually started releasing them, and Killian Dane was the last straw in that whole, you could say, sanity story.
Another sad case of someone with great hype and great talent, because for a man of his size, Killian Dane was amazing. And his biggest highlights were obviously, part of Sanity. And that was during like late 2017, early 2018 period when he shone through in War Games. Like he was one of the biggest stars of that inaugural War Games match on NXT.
And they
And
and they used to call him the MVP of War Games at that time because of that performance.
yes, and after that, he was part of that five-star ladder match on Takeover New Orleans. That match itself is quite cursed in hindsight, because from that even only Ricochet and Adam Cole are still remaining with the company. The rest of them, like two of them, got released in controversies. Two of them got released in sad cases,
Two of them
and now we
got
have it
cancelled, you could say.
cancelled in a huge way. And Killian Dane, like he was wrestling in like before signing with WWE, he was like one of the mainstay on the UK independent scene. He was wrestling as Big Demo, and just before his NXT signing, he was on What Culture Pro Wrestling, and he was being managed by Adam Lompier, as well as like he was the inaugural WCPW champion as well at that time.
But and another thing I wanted to add. So when the whole sanity thing disbanded, then you could say it was a downfall for Killian Dane, because he did come back to NXT and they kind of gave him a stale gimmick with just wearing street clothes, and he was just being the gatekeeper of NXT, putting over young
Yeah,
talents.
yeah, in the Andrade role of late 2016. And like he did wrestle a few matches. I think he wrestled Pete Dunne and someone else on War Games 2019, a night before Survivor Series.
It was Damian Priest.
Oh yes, it was David Priest. And since then, like it's been like topsy turvy. And then he was paired up with, like very recently, he was paired up with Drake Maverick, who knows a thing or two about getting released and coming back. And yeah, that was pretty much his career on NXT slash main roster. Another, like he could have been used very well, but sadly it wasn't the case. But where do you see him going from WWE?
But before that, I kind of wanted him, they could have experimented a Walter versus Killian Dane program.
Yes, and I think they were trying to plant the seeds, because I think Dane and Maverick, they were wrestling Imperium at some point quite recently, or is my memory wrong?
They were feuding with Imperium in when Alexander Wolf got, kind of kicked out. So that's where the whole story ended.
That's another person who got released. Like he was released quite recently, and another sad case who could have done very well.
And so you said where he could land. So I think both Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane, could be heading towards Impact Wrestling and joining. Yeah, who's this guy? Eric Young's faction.
Violent by design.
Yep.
As it is, like it's filled with big meaty men slapping meat.
Or
To say that.
if Killian Dane or Demo, you should say, should have a bigger impact, then he should try to revive the UK indie scene, or he could do the same thing in the States as well.
Yes, I think maybe both Demo and Wolf could be a tag team by themselves and do well, because obviously they have like natural chemistry. And I want to point this out, like the way he was slotted in NXT itself was quite. I don't want to say it was luck by chance, but because the original person before Killian Dane in the stable was Sawyer Fulton, and
Oh,
he then got
wow.
injured. He got injured, and then Killian Dane came in because he was a thing with like he was Nikki, like he was in a relationship with Nikki Cross in real life, and then that started his rise from there. Like you will say, like you could say he wasn't even the original member of Sanity, and he came in, and then his rise was there even since
Imagine
then.
if Wolf and Demo go to Impact, and now it's full circle.
Could you could you
And I'm
explain that?
talking
Why?
about this whole sanity thing, no Fulton getting
Yes.
released, etc.,
Oh
etc.
yes. Yes. Yeah. Fulton's also an Impact now, or is he gone?
No, he's still in Impact.
Yes, I think he's managing the X Division guy. I forgot his name.
Ace Austin.
Ace Austin. Yes, that's the last thing I remember. And since then, I
So
don't remember.
that's about Killian Day, but let's finally conclude this with Bollywood Boys, aka the Singh brothers. I think they had a ceiling after the whole Jinder thing was done because, for obvious reasons, they kind of wanted to do something on 205 Live, but nobody watches 205 Live, and that was it for these two guys.
Very sad. Like these guys could have been like a good tag team act on whichever show Jinder was on. Like if Jinder was going after the singles championship, these guys were kind of their insurance policy, and then they could have been a tag team on their own and do something. And I was actually a huge fan of the Bollywood Boys, because before getting into WWE they had done pretty well for themselves in the independent scene, and they were also the inaugural GFW tag team champions, the Jeff Jarrett's promotion.
Remember that?
And
I
since
remember
the,
that.
yeah, the Global Force Gold scam.
Is that
And
company coming back?
not even in the slightest.
I kind of hope it does.
What will be the point of their existence if they come back? Because Jarrett's with WWE.
Is he? I think he
He
got
is
released
he
too,
no
or you could say
he's
furloughed.
still no he's still with the company as a backstage producer.
Anyways, man, but so all out of all these guys, mostly nobody's going to AEW because the AEW roster is getting stacked with with all the signings they had done in the last 6 to a year. So but I could want these Bollywood boys to go to AEW just so Tony Khan could buy the rights for DC boys.
Oh my god,
Imagine that.
that's going to be amazing if that happens. But I do see them popping up in Impact. In fact, most of these guys, except maybe Tony Nese, because I think he's someone who can break through this supposed glass ceiling that is there. But most of the guys, do see them in Impact or maybe ROH for Anthony Green, August Gray, or Kurt Stallion.
But let's see, man, those were the list of releases that they have done. Not a big names, but yeah, you could say, there were some standouts like Brizango, or you could say a Killian Day.
And Tony Nese, former
So
cruiserweight champion.
yeah, mostly these guys will be doing better of signing with different promotions. I think not everyone is going to AEW right now, so this will help
No,
promotion like ROH, Impact, and maybe a New Japan, and their
MLW is
strong
also
brand.
there.
Yes, even MLW. There you go. Wrestling is going to be
Uh,
wild. I say the wrestling scene is going to be wild. Come July and August.
Yes, and I've mentioned this in the past. Like, nowadays, ever since the emergence of AEW, like if you're released by WWE, you have like these multiple avenues where you can go and shine through. And it's not the end of the world if you're like, if you're let go by WWE. These talents are going to make better use of you and you're going to become a star. So I feel that's what's going to happen with all of these guys. And I wish them all the very best in their future endeavors and hope they live up to their name and potential wherever they go.
But let's quickly get into the typical Raw review, man. So this was actually a pretty good show, what I've heard, which is shocking.
Yes, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't nearly as bad as usual, but this was actually And it was an improvement on last week's show, which is like I mentioned, it was a 20% improvement on usual. This one, I would say it's a 30% or 40% on the normal one.
And
So
the
which is still positive news.
and the other highlight was that they are already giving away the matches for Money in the Bank, which is 3 weeks from now. If I'm not wrong.
Yes, it is the first pay-per-view that's going to take place with the fans, and it's going to take place in, I think, Texas.
Yeah, pretty much the
With
Money in
like,
the Bank weekend is happening in the Texas area.
yeah, interesting times ahead.
But the other thing is now that they have announced majority of the matches for the pay-per-view, so now you can try to build these matches up to get us excited.
Yes, for sure. Like they have like announced a few matches already, and of course the annual Money in the Bank matches are always they always deliver in some way, and that's going to be an exciting match regardless. But let's start off. You want to start off with the main event picture, or
Yes, let's talk about the main event picture. So they announced Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston, which was kind of that it is before they were heading towards Hell in a Cell. So we already got somewhat of a story there. But what did they do to progress that story on this week's Raw?
so Kofi Kingston, like Bobby Lashley, was celebrating his victory on Raw after, and by the way, I forgot to mention, like, I only watched Hell in a Cell like way late because of my busy schedule. And the main event that like, I'll talk more whenever we talk about that particular wrestler involved in Hell in a Cell. The main event finish, man. What the fuck was that?
Mm, that really wasn't a big deal, but the you could say if you want to talk about big deal was that Bobby Lashley actually retained the championship.
He did, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to be those raging internet nerds who complain about everything. But that did leave a sour taste in my mouth. At the same time, in a way, that leaves a big window of opportunity for Drew to, bounce back once Lashley loses his championship to whoever that person may be. But I don't know, man. It was so weird. Like, it came out of left field, and then like here we are. But like progressing from that, this like Bobby Lashley celebrates his victory over Drew, and now that he's out of the title picture for the foreseeable future, then Kofi Kingston come up, and I liked how they actually addressed that Kofi had pinned Bobby in the past, so which of course makes him eligible for a title shot. And I like how they actually did a little bit of nuance in this form of storytelling. And now we have a match scheduled for Money in the Bank official for the WWE Championship. And to start off the journey, we had a Hell in a Cell match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods in the main event of this particular Raw,
Talk
which
about
was a
you
great match.
talk about devaluing the Hell in a Cell concept. Don't you think?
Yes, like I don't remember in the past if a Hell in a Cell match has taken place on Raw, because obviously like they made a big deal out of it on SmackDown, like the first ever Hell in a Cell, Michael Cole Schilling. But on Raw, yeah, it is devaluing the Hell in a Cell concept because it's used to settle blood feuds, and now here we are giving it away on random TV
I
episodes.
think the only reason they did it on Raw is because the networks got jealous. Because why did you do it on SmackDown on Fox? So we on NBC also need a Hell in a Cell match. So there you go. They booked the match.
Yes, and I it also feels like something Xavier Woods would book on his GM mode episodes on Up Up Down Down. Jokes aside, I think, yeah, maybe you could say IRL, because Xavier Woods, of course, he's like a huge. I mean, he's a wrestler by himself and a huge fan at that. And this would be one of his dream accomplishments, to wrestle in a Hell in a Cell match, be it wherever it is.
And by the way, they are really showcasing Xavier Woods as a singles act.
Yes, like for a while, like, ever since New Day became a thing and became more than famous, like reaching superstardom, Xavier Woods, like, you don't, like I had mentioned previously, like you don't really see him as the guy who would shine on himself, but by himself. But if you're a hardcore wrestling fan who has been following his career since his time in TNA, you know what is he capable of. And I'm glad to see that happen, because whenever he wrestles in singles competition, he always tears the house down. And this one was no such exception.
So there is somewhat of a, could say, excitement potential for this Kofi Lashley thing. First off, it's fresh,
Yes.
and you could do a lot with Kofi Kingston compared to what you were
Yeah.
doing with Drew McIntyre.
Yes, and in a way, it's his revenge on Brock, because like he lost the title in such embarrassing fashion to him. And the closest, now that you don't have Brock Lesnar now, that's Bobby Lashley is the closest person you could find to be Brock's proxy, a proxy, if you could say. So maybe they are just trying to test the waters, and hopefully later down, we could get a Kofi versus Brock rematch if the timing or if all circumstances are right.
I think that's a little unlikely.
It is, but let a man dream.
But let's talk about the qualifying matches from the men's side, and let's start from Drew McIntyre. I think he was one of those matches, right?
Yes, he was facing Riddle in that was the main event of the show.
No, it was.
Yeah, I think it was. No, before the Hell in a Cell. My bad. I just spoke about it. Shit.
So McIntyre lost clean.
With a roll up.
Okay, then. So it was somewhat of protected Drew McIntyre.
Yes. So it's like roll up is Drew McIntyre's worst enemy right now.
But really good choice for going. It kind of gave some legitimacy to more legitimate, you could say, for Matt Riddle's that he pinned Drew McIntyre.
Absolutely. Like, I've been saying since we started this podcast that we started the series on the podcast that like Drew McIntyre is like the biggest legit babyface on Raw, and below him there's like a huge gap, and then you have guys like Riddle and now Orton, who's also a babyface. So it's like a huge gulf of talents on the babyface side of things, and having Riddle, who they are investing a lot of time and giving him credibility and just building him up to be a star, and having him pin Drew McIntyre is like a stamp of approval from the management as well, because they really see a big future in this guy and they want him to be a bigger star. And having defeated Drew McIntyre, it's like the biggest way you're going to get over. And on the other side, like having him wrestle in Money in the Bank is also a great proposition, because obviously Money in the Bank ladder matches are usually like a way for like I've mentioned this in the past, that an upper mid card talent, this is like the best shot from graduating from the upper mid card to the main event picture. And Riddle, in all means, is an upper mid carder who is waiting for who has a big chance to shine, even if he wins the Money in the Bank ladder match. So that's that. And like a big, you could say he's one of the favorites to win the champion, to win the briefcase, because of his stature and his potential.
Yeah, they could go. I think, but there is a chance that they put the whole situation back with Drew McIntyre again, because he's got yet another chance next week, right?
Yes, and we'll get to that. So there we have about Drew McIntyre. Like he's lost this week, and now he's part of a last chance match, which we'll get to, as like we are talking about, since we are talking about the qualification matches for the ladder match on the Raw side of things. So we had Drew McIntyre versus Riddle, Then we had Randy Orton versus John Morrison and another qualifying match. So this match was actually really nice. Obviously, both of these being like veterans in WWE, and they've put on countless great matches. I don't want to sit together, but in the past. So it was like, it's still weird to me having to see Randy Orton as a babyface now after the heel run that he had last year. So yeah, so this was a match. It was great, and again, like one of the highlights of this match was, of course, like Randy Orton giving John Morrison a suplex on the announce table, the dangerous one. Shout out to Bollywood boys. And there was this moment where the Miz, oh yeah, the Miz is also returned. Like, he's accompanying Morrison, but in a wheelchair, attending to his ACL injury. And Riddle arrives on a scooty. It's called a scooty, right? I forgot what it's called.
It's called a scooter,
The
man.
thing. Yeah.
We say that
So
shit in India.
yeah. So Riddle and the Miz are chasing, like, Riddle is chasing Miz in his scooty, like, around the ring, which distracts Orton, and Morrison picks up the win. So Morrison, obviously, being someone with his skill set in a ladder match is like, taking up from a duck to water. So it's like a seamless, and he's also one of the potential winners. I wouldn't rank him very high, but with the stuff that he's able to achieve, and seeing Miz's rise earlier this year, so you could do a full circle based on that story. But
And
regardless, this is also an exciting
let's talk about
contender
AJ
to
Styles
win.
versus Ricochet, because finally Ricochet beat AJ Styles.
Finally, like, he put like, there is a phrasing, right? Putting the evil away from your back, something like that. And of course, like, this match was also great. I mean, these guys have wrestled in the past and have done well together. Now under like different proposition, because at that time Ricochet was still hot on the main roster. He was the US champion when he faced AJ Styles, and AJ Styles, of course, being a legend. So this match was great, and obviously the big highlight of this match was the finish, where AJ is going for a phenomenal forearm, and Ricochet catches him with a recoil to pick up the victory. So Ricochet is also part of this Money in the Bank ladder match, and obviously, someone like him with his skill set being a part of this match, and doing wonderful stuff that he's able to do.
So the lineup already announced from the Raw side is really great.
Oh yes, and these guys. I mean, I wouldn't really count Ricochet, but Morrison and Riddle are genuinely, like, big contenders who could do well as holders of the Money in the Bank briefcase, and eventually getting to cash in. Because with Morrison, you have a ready-made story, and with Riddle, you have like a future star. But like you mentioned, like, the three losers from these matches have a second chance match next week. So AJ Styles versus Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton in a last chance match, where the winner goes on to qualify and completes the Raw side of the Money in the Bank lineup. No surprises. I think it's going to be Drew McIntyre, and this will be a chance for him to get back into the title picture, which will be a big waste of time, in with all due respect.
And yeah, but there's also this element that he can't go after Bobby Lashley.
Yes, but eventually, like, he won't get title opportunities at Bobby, but he can cash in. So that is going to be a weird loophole that they'll get across.
If it's
But
if he can't cash in against Bobby Lashley, that could be interesting. But if they do have that, I have money in the bank, then I can cash in anytime, no matter the stipulation. Then it's going to be a fuck up situation.
for sure. And as Money in the Bank briefcase holders, you have like another window of opportunity where you could cash in on another champion, which happens to be Roman Reigns. But that they're not going to go that route. They
They
could,
could,
however, they could do that, but I don't see them doing it.
because if you think about it, if Drew gets drafted to SmackDown, we will talk about the draft. then your logical choice is McIntyre versus Reigns. If they want to take the title of Reigns and give it to McIntyre.
And this also brings the story full circle from last year's Survivor Series.
But first, they have to really cool off McIntyre to get him hot again. You know what I mean? To if he wants to go uh, to that WrestleMania season and go after some championship, especially if it's someone like Roman.
Yes, you could do that, but I think Roman, like we've mentioned in the past, that Roman, with the rumors that are circling around right now, Roman has bigger fishes to fry. So you don't really see that happening with McIntyre, but stranger things have happened. So let's see where the story goes from here.
So speaking about Stranger Things, so let's talk about the women's lineup for their women's Money in the Bank ladder match, of course. So how were the qualifying matches over there?
So we had a tag team match with like Asuka and Naomi versus Eva Marie and Dewdrop. Dewdrop. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Who cares, man? It's Dewdrop, Dewdrop. Let
Yes. So
but the one thing about this name, so they kind of teased it in a way that Piper Niven actually doesn't like the name that is given to her, that is Dewdrop. I'm talking about in character. So
yes,
that's a thing.
and yes, and I previously mentioned like last week where given how Eva Marie was celebrating her Dewdrop or Piper Niven's victory, that she won that by herself, and she was also puzzled by that. So they like teased a lot of things in one segment, and this was also like another continuation of that, where Eva Marie just announced her name, and she was shocked. And the big takeaway from this match is, of course, Asuka and Naomi in a tag team match where they pin Eva Marie, surprise but not surprise, and Dewdrop refuses to help her to break up the pinfall, and Asuka and Naomi are heading into the Money in the Bank ladder match on the women's side.
Strange booking.
Very strange booking. Like since like at the start itself, they have teased so much. You could say, like, it's setting in motion of what are we expecting, but at the same time, like, doing that 2 consecutive weeks in a row feels like a bit of an overkill.
And did you hear that for a while Eva Marie was moved to the alumni section of WWE, the website?
Yes, yes, that was a thing, but rumors that it was hacked. But again, like, that's like the most basic explanation you can give. Not sure
And,
what it is, but don't really see.
and why do I have a feeling that WWE is kind of regretting in this big investment in Eva Marie?
You could say that.
But yeah, so Naomi and Asuka are in the Money in the Bank ladder match then.
Yes, and obviously, like, Naomi is also there, mostly there for the spots. Asuka is also one of the, I don't want to say genuine contenders, because she won it last year. Maybe they could test the waters again, but I don't really see it happening. But last year's Asuka, you could say, like, she was one of the biggest stars during the when the pandemic happened, and she was the most entertaining. Yeah, she was the most entertaining act on Raw at that time. So with that, like, that was like a thank you present for her, and then she goes on to win the championship, like, on the very next night after Becky Lynch announces her pregnancy. And yeah, I don't really see Asuka winning, but Naomi, like, there is potential, but she's mostly there for the spots.
So are these the only two ladies that have been announced, or did we get another name?
Yes, we had another match on the show. It was another tag team match player for the Money in the Bank qualification. So two, like, it was like the classic case of strange bedfellows, where obviously Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are like they are a dysfunctional tag team, and which is seeing its end soon. And we had them facing Alexa Bliss, who was already weird, and we had a superhero Nikki Cross.
Yeah, the superhero gimmick is a thing, man.
Yes, and all of that. I mean, I don't want to crap on this because it seems like her idea that she had envisioned this character for so long since, since becoming a wrestling fan. At the same time, like the all the past few weeks, that the wins that she had on Charlotte and Rhea, it feels like all of that is gone to shit.
With especially now that they have given her a new character.
Yes.
It's hard to believe that it's her idea and not from the creative.
It is hard to believe that, but I mean, if it's her idea, then fair play. I'm just not drawn by it, and given that, like, waste, you have wasted in a way all of that momentum that she had, and just giving her this character and then taking her to Money in the Bank, because this was a ready-made title match for the Raw Women's Championship, and that is not happening now. Feels like a waste of our time.
But speaking about the positives, someone, I think lots of the people in the IWC were saying, regardless the character she plays, she's going to get over.
Oh,
Hopefully.
for sure. Like she's done whenever she's given a chance to shine, she always knocks it out of the park. So this won't be like another such exception, but I think like she's going to do well. But I'm just a bit bummed from like on the continuity aspect. So both Alexa and Nikki win this match and go on to qualify. So the Raw side of the women's Money in the Bank is full right now, even on the men's side, but there's still one vacancy. But meanwhile, on the women's side, it's full now. So
But speaking about Nikki Cross,
Alexa, yeah,
again, there is a lot of potential in a genuine Nikki Cross character that can get massively over with the fans.
it has been getting over like over the past few years since she was in a tag team with Alexa, and later on, becoming like just breaking off from Alexa. Like there was a huge, like she had this huge fire in her, and they never capitalized on that. So
And now the superhero gimmick can work, but it's going to be in that mid card role. That's it.
yeah, there's going to be a ceiling on this, 100%.
Basically, it's the same thing that they have done with the Hurricane and Molly Holly.
Molly Holly, yes, and Molly Holly is actually one of Nikki Cross's wrestling heroes. Nikki Cross, yeah, Nikki Cross's wrestling heroes, and no surprises on that part if this character is from her.
But I think that was Raw. I think, yeah, did there any other major thing happen on Raw that we are missing?
Not particularly. There were like few promos here and there. Obviously now Jackson Riker is a baby face, so that was like them and Elias have a match next week. I didn't really care what the match was, and I'm not gonna watch that. And obviously, like there were backstage moaning between Jinder Mahal, Jeff Hardy, and Cedric Alexander. That's about it.
So yeah, that was, you could say, a pretty good episode of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, it was like a massive improvement over the past few weeks.
But I think we should move on. Shall we discuss some basic news that we have? I think let's start from the draft. So I think it's happening late August or September, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, 9 days removed from SummerSlam. So SummerSlam is on 21st of August, and the draft is on 30th August, which will start on an episode of Raw, and then it will eventually continue on the 3rd September episode of SmackDown. And as per the reports, that they are planning a lot of stuff for this episode, for this particular draft. So you don't really know, like, with the rumors, a lot of rumors are coming in that there will be huge call-ups from NXT. There will be some stars that are currently in mid card will be moved across to freshen the scene and eventually given a big push. And one such name that has been cropped up is Big E, because when they moved him, like when they split up the New Day, there were obviously they were trying to embark on a Big E singles run, and eventually build him up to face Roman Reigns, which now that you look back in hindsight, it's a laughable matter because of the stuff that Big E has gone through as a champion and even without the title. So there are rumors that he's being moved to Raw and eventually put in a title picture, reuniting the New Day, but in a way that's like how Kofi was the champion despite being a part of New Day. Now that they're going to do that with Biggie, it's all speculation as of now, but I think it will be a good move for him because obviously, like with SmackDown, like Roman Reigns is obviously untouchable. He's like the demigod of pro wrestling. No offense to Kenny Omega, and like you could say Biggie as a WWE champion, believably facing either Brock or Bobby, whoever wins at SummerSlam, reportedly. So you could see a lot of potential as of Biggie as a single star, and this is like the best use you could make now that SmackDown's hands are full with Tribal Chief, head of the table, best of the best.
But there are two things that they could experiment. One is the eventual top run as WWE champion against Bobby Lashley or whoever it is. But they could also, experiment uh, a inner feud in the inner. I'm saying inner circle in New Day.
uh, it's going to break my heart to see that happen, but when has WWE never shied away from breaking up an over or an interesting act? Because New Day, now that you are like 7 years removed from the eventual
Formation.
formation to the like to where they are now. I don't want to see them break up. Like, and that will be something that all three members would eventually object to. They could like still keep it together, and maybe like you could see a way of one-upsmanship where both Biggie and Kofi try to one up each other based on what they achieve. But regardless, man, I don't know, man. I'm not really ready to see the New Day breakup.
But on the topic of Biggie, that they do have some big plans for make this draft a legit thing, like have an actual reset on the both SmackDown and Raw roster.
Yes, like the biggest reset that we had was 2019, and here we are now. But yeah, given that the amount of, like, with all due respect, like we've been moaning about how terrible Raw has been in the past, so this is like a great opportunity for them to refresh things up. But is it? From what I heard, I think it's not going to be the same format as what it was.
I
Like they're
hope
going to
I hope it's the slot machine concept.
yes, the lottery, right?
Yeah,
That
a lottery, or we could
I
say
hope.
that we were seeing in 06, 07.
Yes, with the matches where the winner gets a draft pick.
Yeah,
That was like my favorite. That was my favorite version of the draft. I'd love to see it return, but I hated this network. All these network executives celebrating in the back room, like they're celebrating, like getting someone like Humberto Carrillo or Natalia, which is
strange.
strange, very strange. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the draft. Obviously, like it's always one of the things I most look forward to, because obviously, like having these brand split and the draft assignment is always like one of my favorite aspects of WWE, irrespective of how terrible the product is. And I'm excited to see whoever moves around, because I feel like given the hot run SmackDown has been on ever since previous year's draft, I think that's going to break up.
And I think this year they will include NXT call-ups included in the draft.
Not the Arturo Ruas side of things, but yeah,
They're gonna get some
I'm not.
big names, man. They're gonna get some big names.
It also ties up with the story a few weeks ago where the main roster guys were at the performance center scouting talents who would do well on the main roster, and transitioning from like a slight transition from this draft news to the NXT potential call-ups. So both NXT champions, Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed were
Main event.
wrestling on main event this week, and Karrion Kross was without Scarlett, which caused a huge uproar in the IWC.
And which doesn't look good because Karen Cross should need. I think the pair between him and Scarlett is really a great presentation. It really helps a lot with the Karen Cross character.
Yes, and the entrance is also one of the biggest attractions of this act. And if you just break this up, and if you move Carrion, and he even entered normally, which was very strange, like with the crowd, with the normal lighting. So that sucked. But you know, I don't really have any worry for Carrion because he was a talent that they've been scouting for so long, and now that he's an overall package, you could say, with the legit wrestling background, and also his character is also quite great. So he would do well on the main roster, but we said that for a lot of people in the past when it has not worked out well.
He is
So that
he
is a
should
bit of worry.
succeed. He should succeed, seeing that he's a typical Vince McMahon guy.
He is. That's the best part. But we said the same thing about EC3 in the past. So that leaves me a bit with a bit of worry. But I'm not very. Yeah, I'm not actually quite worried about Karrion Kross on the main roster. I feel he's going to do very well.
But he does need Scarlett to make that
Yes,
initial transition.
for sure. Like I can't imagine, like having seen Karrion like as Killer Cross in Impact and doing a few dates in MLW on his own, with the freedom that he had. He did remarkably well on Impact, and wherever he's wrestled. He's also wrestled on Bloodsport, I believe. And now that's ever since moving to NXT, like having both. Scarlett really makes up for most of his attraction for Carrion, and it really adds up to his character. So if you split them up, it's gonna suck. But I don't really see that happening because I feel both of them, if they move eventually to the main roster, I think they both will move together, and I feel Carrion's going to be fine.
And the other potential NXT names could be, like you said, just mentioned Bronson Reed. You could also add Finn Balor in there. You could add Adam Cole, Yoshirai. So these are the potential names if you want to add NXT in this whole draft scenario.
It's high time you move Adam Cole and Io Shirai because like they've literally run the gamut on NXT. They don't
Just
really have anything else to do.
which is
Just move
kind of
them.
scary. Which is kind of scary that
Yes,
they are going to the main roster.
that's for true. But it depends. Like if mostly like for Io Shirai, you could say like wherever she moves with the current championship scene, she has history with both Rhea and Bianca. So that's going to be interesting if you move her over to any of these shows. I hope it's SmackDown for both of these, even Adam Cole, who I was going to mention, because if Paul Heyman's doing the creative for SmackDown, you are in a bit of safe hands if you're not the ideal Vince McMahon guy in terms of your stature. But speaking of SmackDown creative, I read this report from the Ultimate Bro Vince Russo. He appeared on a podcast and he's like effective immediately. Bruce Pritchard is the head writer for SmackDown, which also is a curse.
Is that an exclusive or is it a thing?
I feel it's a thing, and it has been for so long, ever since Eric Bischoff was let go after the first episode of SmackDown on Fox.
But like we say on this show, man, there is Paul Heyman influence on SmackDown.
There is. So like that's going to be fine. But again, like I have zero hopes from Bruce Pritchard, whatever he does, because he's the ideal yes man.
So the other last thing I wanted to mention before we move ahead about the draft, I think Bronson Reed is going to stay in NXT. I think he needs to stay longer, a bit longer in
He
NXT.
needs to he needs to stay longer in NXT. At the same time, I don't really see him moving to the main roster anytime soon. Or maybe he could stay in NXT for a longer time, and eventually, like when the time is right, they could see him move to freshen things up for himself and on whichever show he's a part of.
because
But
it's
his yeah.
yeah, because it's going to leave a big void in NXT in that whole title picture, you could say. I'm
Yes,
talking
and
about
he
the
just
big
won the
stars.
championship. Yes, and he just won the championship like a few months ago. I think last month.
So
So it's going to be a big gut punch if he moves to the main roster.
let's see, man. Let's see. WWE can do anything at this point.
No surprises.
So shall we move into the SmackDown review, or am I forgetting something?
We can before we move to the SmackDown review, I would say like there was a news that now that they are going to start touring. SmackDown's having a show at the Madison Square Garden on September 10th, which is
So
obviously a huge deal for WWE because MSG is kind of their it's their I'm not getting the word
home
actually. Like
ground
it's yeah, it is their home ground in more ways than
kind of
one
used to be
because
a home ground.
yes, now that it's Florida, but like MSG obviously has historical ties with WWE in the past, like hosting WrestleManias and so many of their big shows. So it's like returning, yeah, returning home. And now, I mean, it is an MSG. Then obviously they're going to pull out all the stops and making it a great show. So exciting times ahead.
They kind of neglected MSG when they started running WrestleMania in this whole big stadiums, and they stopped doing live shows like live Raw or SmackDown inside
Yes,
MSG.
they were doing house shows in MSG, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a show that they ran in MSG, SmackDown or a Raw.
It
This
was
was before
2019,
the 20, yeah, it was the 2019 draft, and it was around the same time as like September 10, September 12.
and they got in Stone Cold and Undertaker for both these shows.
Yes, I completely forgot about that
They're going to do
until
the same
the
thing this time around too, just to sell tickets.
yes, the nostalgia trips.
So that was MSG, but they also kind of announced a return to the UK tour.
Yes, that's also a thing. And it's a four-city trip. One of them is going to be Newcastle. No, one of them is going to be Glasgow. One of them is going to be. I really need to check that out. So, and like UK tours are also a big deal for WWE because like that's like twice they move there. One is obviously after WrestleMania, and one is during in the build up to Survivor Series.
So things are getting back to normal, man.
Yes, like normalcy is returning slow and steady.
And speaking about this UK tour, now they are started this overseas tour. So don't be surprised in a couple of months. So we hear that epic team that I'm talking about Legends Rise.
Saudi Arabia.
Yep, it's.
Yeah,
I think they are going to go back to Saudi come November or maybe early December.
maybe even early Jan or Feb.
Let's see, man. But let's quickly get into SmackDown. So SmackDown was, I think the quality of the SmackDown shows are slowly dipping.
This week was actually great. That's what I felt like. I really enjoyed this week's SmackDown for obvious reasons.
Yeah, but it depends on if what impact Roman Reigns really makes on these shows.
That's for true.
And it's sad thing that it's becoming the Roman Reigns show and not, a bit more focus on other talents because they kind of are being downgraded.
We mentioned that last week as well. That Roman's taking up the major chunk of the show, which itself is interesting in its own right, but it takes away the spotlight from a lot of other talents. Like
And
we are kind of embracing what we accused WWE for. Like WWE is embracing what they were accused of in the past, being the Roman Reigns show, but now with a legit reason to hate Roman Reigns in character. That is.
And one of those reasons could be that they have a depleting roster now.
Yes, and I think the best way they're going to plug those holes is with the NXT call-ups. That's what I feel, because they have like a bunch of talents in the performance center waiting for an opportunity. And we mentioned in the past that they were trying to either establish Evolve as NXT subsidiary, which was actually 205 Live, or have them wrestle in these supposed partnerships, which also never came to fruition. But yeah, with the depleting roster, you could say, like, that's the best way you want to cover up that time you have on Lost Superstars. But you still have a bunch of talents who are sitting in catering, so why not use them?
I don't even remember who's being left out from the SmackDown roster because most of them are being used, and that's the only guys they have on that SmackDown team.
Yes, the women's division is it's terrible like in terms of volume, because there are like few. There's Mia Yim also on SmackDown reportedly, and she's not being used at all. Maybe it has some personal ties to the Keith Lee story, maybe not, but let's see what they do.
That's why I say
They'll
now that you're cutting off these people, merge these rosters. At least merge the women's and tag team division for have just a single championship, have one division.
Yeah, uh, it's like I am someone who's a huge fan of the brand split, so it's obviously if they end up doing that, it's gonna suck. And
No, you
with the
no
depl-
you keep the brand split, but at least merge these two divisions, the tag team and the women's. Only need one because it's really it's I think it's really hard to book two different divisions.
yes, it also circles back, like whatever you've mentioned, it circles back to 2010, late 2010, early 2011, because they had like one championship for women's and tag teams on both shows. So you could see that happening if that's the case.
And yeah, so let's start SmackDown. So they actually kicked off with a mixed tag of a situation. So it was Bianca and Cesaro against Seth Rollins and Bailey. And I wanted to mention this again. Most of these feuds that we saw here on SmackDown, most of them are still fresh from WrestleMania. Like Seth Rollins and
Or
Cesaro
before
were,
that.
yeah, they were feuding before WrestleMania. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were feuding before WrestleMania, which I think that will be a conclusion by next week. But anyways, man, so we had a little mixed action kicking off SmackDown. So they started off with your typical promo to open up the show, and which all leads to a eventual matchup. So we had Rollins and Bailey actually taking the victory here, and the champ Bianca Belair got pinned. So yeah, they are here once again continuing this Bailey and Belair thing. So thoughts on this whole situation again?
You could have cooled this feud down for a while, because they've been fighting. Like, if you think about it, Bailey and Bianca have been feuding since late last year. When you remember when Bianca was doing these obstacle courses, and Bailey was trying to deride her, and this is even before Royal Rumble. So from there, like, then Bianca goes on to face Sasha and win, and now you have put Bailey back into the picture. It feels like an overkill, because this feud has been going on forever, and if this is your best explanation of a long-term story, then I don't know. Like, I feel this feud has ran its course, because like, she's literally lost twice, Bailey, to Bianca. And can't help if your women's division is actually quite thin right now, with Sasha away. Carmella has gone a step down or two. Liv Morgan isn't there yet. Mia Yim is MIA, get it? But yeah, if this is your best explanation, then it's a poor one. And speaking of the Cesaro and Rollins, like, it was eventually going to continue until, like, we had predicted SummerSlam. But now with the latest reports that also thanks to our ultimate bro, that he had mentioned Edge. Shit, I think I might have leaked that. That Edge was going to return on like on his time, and the match that was being penciled in for SummerSlam is Edge versus Rollins. So
So they kindly
with this,
ended this Cesaro thing.
they did, but it's going to happen at Money in the Bank. But my best guess is they're going to face off in a qualification for Money in the Bank, like a few weeks from now, probably even next week. So maybe that's like the merciful end to the story. But we'll get to the major ramifications later on in this feud,
But
in
before
this
we
episode.
but before we do, the one last thing I wanted to add, I think it's time that they brought back Sasha Banks to make this whole Bailey and Bianca thing a little fresh.
Yes, and that's eventually going to happen on SummerSlam, be it with or without Bailey in the title picture. But yeah, it's high time they do that. Maybe you could have someone as a stopgap for Bianca, maybe even Carmella, but that's all that she. We'll get to what she's up to, but yeah, you could have that just to cool this feud now, and maybe eventually replug it later down the line, because I feel it has ran its course.
But let's see, man. But speaking about Seth Rollins, I think he's volunteering himself to be, part in that Universal title picture. But what happened in the end of the show, we could see, a lot of storylines coming out from that one situation alone.
Yes, and they did tease it eventually when you remember when Cesaro qualified to face Roman Reigns at Backlash, and they were planting the seeds for Seth versus Roman, with Seth eventually turning face. So maybe we could see that, maybe not, but I'm excited to see where the story goes, because there are ample number of possibilities of where the story is going to go. You could see a Seth face turn. You couldn't see that. You could see a lot of other people entering the picture. So it's interesting times ahead.
But let's start talking about the qualifying matches from the SmackDown side. So they had a one for the men's. It was Biggie and Apollo Cruz again. So we
It
had
was
a
for
little,
the qualification, so it's
yeah.
it's fine.
So it's kind of felt different there. So we had a little involvement from Commander Aziz in this match. So what would happen was, so there was some kind of distraction with Aziz trying to get involved. So referee, decided to kick him out. So at the end, Biggie was, able to overcome all that and hit the big ending on Apollo Cruz, pinned the IC champion and qualified himself for the Money in the Bank ladder match. You could do a lot of things here. Now that they have been yet another champion on the show, so you could do Biggie versus Apollo Cruz again for the IC championship if Biggie doesn't win Money in the Bank. So there's one possibility.
There is another possibility, like we mentioned earlier, that with Biggie mostly moving to Raw, he could win the Money in the Bank championship and cash in whichever show he goes to. So that's also another interesting wrinkle.
But yeah, it was at the expense of pinning your champion. Typical WWE thing to do.
That's for true.
But we there was another kind of qualifying match. No, it was not actually a qualifying match. So Carmela was actually volunteered. Sorry, so Sonia Deville actually announced that Carmela is in the Money in the Bank ladder match because of her accomplishment and stuff. So this led to Liv Morgan coming out. So these two ladies had a little argument, which led to a match where Liv Morgan had actually had a chance to actually prove that she belongs in the match by beating Carmella, which she did, and now she is also in the Money in the Bank ladder match. There you go.
Insert Spider-Man meme. But
So
yeah, I mean, fair play if you want to start from the genesis of this arc. So Carmella, with her accomplishments, they speak for themselves, and having her in the Money in the Bank ladder match makes a lot of sense, because either way, she wouldn't have anything else to do. But Liv Morgan is like a wild card for me, because I feel like you wouldn't really expect her to do stuff, but there are a lot of ways you can. even if you see like this huge potential in Liv Morgan as a star. So if you may or may not have her win the briefcase, she's going to shine through in some way, and I'm here for that. But
And
yeah,
the way they did it,
interesting.
there was actually no there was no logical way to have a qualifying match, I guess, because of the lack of women on this division.
Yes, and who would the other two females be? That's another interesting.
I
Okay,
think one of them could be Sasha Banks. Has to be, right?
has to be, but given that she has a ready-made story with Bianca upon her eventual return, Money in the Bank would be a bit of a waste. Otherwise, I would see Mia Yim if they want to make good use of her, because she is someone who should do something on the SmackDown, on the show. I'm sorry, I'm jumbling up my words right now. So you could see Mia Yim do something on SmackDown, and starting off with the Money in the Bank match would be a great way to make a first impression, because her most memorable match in NXT was the ladder match to who gets to enter first in the War Games match.
They could do that. I don't know. Or the other could be Natalia, to be a good hand. I'm talking about the
For
involvement
sure.
in the ladder match, not winning this whole thing. Just in the involvement in
No,
the ladder.
I didn't think of that. Like, she's going to be a good hand wherever she's plugged into, and she's just great at. I think she's great at whatever she does, except her charisma side of her skills, mic skills, and all that stuff. But she's a great wrestler, and I feel that her involvement in the Money in the Bank picture would actually make the match a lot better.
See if in case Sasha Banks gets announced for Money in the Bank, then she is automatically the favorite to win this.
Yes, but it will be a bit of a waste, like I mentioned. Even if Drew McIntyre wins next week and goes on to win the briefcase, it's going to be a huge waste. And like, it's been like a bit of an underwhelming case if you're giving the Money in the Bank briefcase to someone who's already in the main event picture, like Brock Lesnar, or before that Braun Strowman. He was in the main event series, and he didn't really need the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Is Shayna Baszler in this lineup?
She lost to Alexa and Nikki, but and the Raw side is full, so I don't really see her being a part of it.
I could have picked Shayna Baszler to win Money in the Bank.
It would have made a lot of sense, but it's WWE, so prepare yourself to get disappointed.
So the women's lineup is really the opposite of what we talked about the men's lineup.
Yes, in a lot more ways, and they've been delivering. The women's matches have been like they've always been great, and this one has a lot of potential to be one such thing.
But sticking to the qualifying matches, though, they announced Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn for next week. I think that's the blow off feud. And when I was actually reviewing Hell in a Cell, so Spandan actually predicted this, that they are kind of, they could, blow up this whole Owens versus Zayn feud, in this qualifying match. So they did that.
I mean, if you look at it on the outset, it feels like a bit of a waste, but it's Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They don't need an excuse to wrestle each other in a lot of ways later on. But yeah, there were reports that Kevin Owens is taking a break. He himself announced it after Hell in a Cell. So this is a great way for Sami to win and move on from this feud, and also gives Kevin a break from things. So, and you could really see Sami Zayn as one of the contenders to win, but sadly, with both the champions, maybe like with his conspiracy character, it makes it it's going to be a bit weird. But if there's anyone who makes a best out of any situation, it's Sami Zayn. So let's see how that goes. If he, of course, if he ends up winning, that is, but
By
feels less
the
likely
by the way, it's the last man standing, so you could have Sami Zayn win that match easily.
in more ways than one. And also, it also makes sense for KO to take time off later on.
And by the way, I really put him over, in that Hell in a Cell match. The way he was selling it. Like for 1 second, we all got confused that did he really get injured, or is he the greatest seller in the wrestling business right now?
Oh, he's the greatest seller in wrestling business right now, Kevin Owens. Like you remember previously when he lost to Apollo Crews by falling on the apron. So that itself was quite believable. And obviously, it's Kevin Owens, man. Like he's someone who's been doing this for more than 20 years and has been amazing at it. So yeah.
So, what else did we have on the show? Yeah, we had the coronation of the new king. So it is King Shinsuke Nakamura. So they are a little,
King's K.
yeah, they kind of mentioned it, and I was thankful that they didn't make it a thing.
Yes, it's a thing. It's actually a thing, but I hope it's not. Like in it's a weird way to put it. So like has a coronation and it's an epic one, and then we have like a depressed. So this was like a good touch. Kayla Braxton going to so like King Corbin, and then he just looks at her sadly and he's like, "Sorry, Baron Corbin, we have this blah blah blah," and then he's like, "Everything is taken away from me. So what's the point?" And you could see like a new arc from Baron Corbin. Like, how does he bounce back from here? Which is going to be very interesting. Like we've seen him as a bad guy for so long, you might turn the tides a little. And I am someone who, I mean, I've given him enough shit in the past. If you go through my Twitter history, or he was one of the first person to block me on Twitter. But I do see that, like, there is potential in him that WWE clearly sees, and he's someone who does his job very well with whatever he's given. So whatever happens with him, I'm excited to see where his story arc goes from here. Either he turns face, maybe, either he bounces back into something. If he goes back to being in Lone Wolf, there are a lot of possibilities, and I'm excited to see whatever he does.
We already pitched the idea of this storyline. You could bring back King of the Ring easily. Have Shinsuke legit win this. Do some creative shit.
For sure. There are a lot of ways they can go with that as well, but I don't know. Like with King's K, maybe they can just crown him king and just be done with. I don't see, like, King of the Ring is going to, like, if there is a King of the Ring that happens, and if he doesn't win it, it's going to move on to someone else. Maybe they could make best use of that with a title opportunity, maybe not, but let's see what happens.
So, can you see Shinsuke Nakamura in the Money in the Bank ladder match?
Maybe, but with this King gimmick, I don't. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match has 7 people. Oh, sorry, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match has 7 people instead of usually 8.
Why?
I don't know. Like I read somewhere. Just let me just confirm that for you.
No, it's eight. It has to
Uh,
be eight, right? Why
it
it
has
getting
to be
announced
eight.
just seven?
Yeah, it has to be 8. But I'm just trying to make sure. So just one, 2, 3, 6. There are 8. My bad. I miscalculated it. I'm sorry.
So you could put in Shinsuke in there if the only two from the SmackDown are Cesaro and Shinsuke. Because am I missing someone?
I think you I think you'll have one face and another heel, because there's Biggie already, and there's potentially Sami Zayn going into this match.
Let's see. So we have already said that the men's lineup is way better than the women's lineup.
Yes, but the women's match has the potential to be great, and they've always delivered. So I'm excited for that as well.
But so we were talking about the segment, the coronation segment. It was just short and simple. Rook Boost just announced Nakamura as the new king of WWE. So Nakamura was actually wearing a killer outfit here with that whole white shit, yes, and the crown. And like usual, Pat McAfee is marking out on commentary, and
That was amazing.
he
Like
was
he was
trying
just
to do
going the stone cold.
yeah, he was trying to be stone cold on on that with the water bottles and shit. We just Pat McAfee is great, man.
Oh man, Pat McAfee is awesome.
Other than Roman Reigns, Pat McAfee is the legit best thing on SmackDown right now.
100%.
So, with that being said, shall we move on to the main event segment?
Yes, we shall.
So, before that, they had actually a small mention of the the tag team scene, where they showed they trying to hype up Otis as this legit threat in right now in SmackDown, where he legitimately killed, you could say, both the Street Profit members out of the SmackDown, you could say, right now in the storyline wise, because Dawkins is injured and Montez Ford is actually injured because of somewhat he went through a surgery recently.
Yes, he did.
So that was one thing that they did. And by the way, the Mysterios, you could say, are both Ray and Dominic are out of the picture right now. So the tag team champions are not even present. So that's the state of this whole tag division on SmackDown.
Explains it all.
And that was thanks to Roman Reigns killing both tag champions.
They could just make it that and give it, but who are we to predict?
So let's quickly get this done, man. So there was kind of a story where uh, Jay Uso is still missing. So here comes Jimmy Uso. He says he wants to be the right hand man. So Roman Reigns gave him a kind of an opportunity to prove that, get a win. So Paul Heyman arranged a match between Jimmy Uso and Dolph Ziggler. So Jimmy Uso would end getting the victory here. So they showed us that Roman Reigns is still not kind of impressed with Jimmy Uso. So Roman Reigns had a thing of his own where he was kind of addressing the state of the Universal Championship. So we had a little promo segment where Heyman was actually putting over the title reign so far. The men he Roman Reigns has beaten so far. So before Roman Reigns could speak some words of his own, here comes the returning Edge. So we had a little beatdown segment here. We had Jimmy Uso also getting involved. So Edge was looking to concerto Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns was able to escape. So yeah, Edge is officially back now. So this is a potential matchup for Money in the Bank because there are bigger things you could say for SummerSlam. But what do you think about Edge being back in the Universal title picture going after Roman Reigns again?
It refreshes the title scene in a major way, but like with the rumors that John Cena is returning for SummerSlam, it does feel a bit short. Does feel a bit short because it feels like they're rushing it. Because if John Cena wasn't in the title picture, reportedly, then this was easily the best chance to have Edge versus Roman rematch for Edge to not get his deserved one-on-one championship match that he was supposed to get at WrestleMania. But having said that, I think his return couldn't have come at any better moment because he goes straight into the title picture and like this segment put Edge over in a huge way. Not that he needed it, but he was like a one-man wrecking crew who took out both Roman and Jimmy by himself, and at the same time, like with the rumors that he's facing Rollins at SummerSlam. So it also ties into that story with what Rollins also mentioned that he wants to face Roman for the championship. So maybe you could like it will come a bit full circle if this also happens to be a triple threat match. But I want to see Edge versus Roman slug it out in a one-on-one competition. And yeah, I'm excited for this match. And obviously, like whenever Edge returns, it's always huge. It's always a big deal, rightfully so. And I'm excited for this match. with, I mean, whatever happens, I'm looking forward to it. And this has really, despite, you could say, like, it was like it's becoming the Roman Reigns show in more ways than one. It was a huge shot in the arm to the main event scene, because there is literally, after Cesaro's constant, I don't want to say constant losses, but he lost to Seth Rollins this week's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which kind of puts him a little down in terms of momentum. But yeah, Edge's presence just fills in that gaping hole of main event baby faces on SmackDown.
And the other
And
thing is,
we don't even have Daniel Bryan now, so
yeah, the
we
other thing is they really want. I think the reason they brought Edge back is they really want to do that singles match between Edge and Reigns, because that was the plan going at WrestleMania. But but I think creative felt that fans will not accept this, so they added Daniel Bryan instead. So yeah,
because I felt that with or without Daniel Bryan, this match was like, this match had a lot of stories by itself, but adding Daniel Bryan in the match was the best thing that it could have happened. It really improved the stakes. At the same time, it made the match a whole lot better. So that was great. That was great to see. But yeah, as a singles match, also, I think it's going to deliver. It's just that we were scared to, because with the emergence of Daniel Bryan, of course, no one was really willing to see Edge and Roman, so they had to turn Edge heel for that. Now he's come back as a face, or is he a tweener? I'm not sure, but I'm excited for this match. Like, it's really pumped me up to see this match happen.
and the one thing I noticed is that the ongoing thing with the Usos, that's your long term program, while Roman Reigns is having these marquee matches.
100%. Like,
But
it's a long term story, but they're not overdoing it, which is great, because like I mentioned, like, earlier, while I was reviewing while we were reviewing the show, like, if Bailey and Bianca's version of long term is them having matches, like endless matches with each other, then it's bad. But this one is like, it's long term in a way where like, they're just planting seeds at for something big down the line, and not having them continuously wrestle one another. So it is a lot more tasteful way of doing it, and it really keeps you hooked and excited to see what happens next week.
and the potential matches for SummerSlam, man, it's going to be a stat card.
Yes, and they are pulling out all the stops to give it the WrestleMania like treatment. And I think it's happening in a big stadium as well. It's happening in Las Vegas, I know, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it is happening
It
in a
is
big
a big
stadium.
stadium.
So they are giving it a WrestleMania like treatment, and well deserved, with the card that they're putting up, and the hype that is behind the show. So I'm excited. Like, it's really making things interesting again in WWE by itself.
I think we will talk about in depth of this when they announce John Cena and Roman Reigns.
Yes. And taking back to the Ultimate Bro, he did mention that Cena was returning on 16 July SmackDown. So two of his,
Who first off, who is giving Vince Russo all these scoops?
I don't know. He's doing these weekly podcasts with Sportskeeda. So maybe something, but I don't know, man. It's hard to believe Vince Russo either way.
But I think we have covered everything, man. And are we forgetting something?
No, we've literally covered everything on the show.
I think it's time to go home then. And before we leave, where can these guys find you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at rid_aman. And if you're watching this in video format, you can see it right above my head.
And you can find Slam Hub Wrestling on Twitter at Slam Hub W, Instagram at Slam Hub Wrestling. And you can catch the audio versions of this podcast, be it on Spotify and Anchor as well. This was the main roster talk, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.